Hey guys, in this video I'll be comparing 1995 Dorian Yates and 1998 Ronnie Coleman. Both are regarded as being some of their best versions, so it'll be interesting to see how these two legends stack up against each other, especially from behind. Now before we do get into this video though, a like and sub would really help out the channel. With that all being said, let's get into this video. The front double is the first pose of this comparison, and in it you can see that there's immediately a clear winner. Now, sizing was difficult due to the differences in angles of the pictures. However, we can be pretty certain that Ronnie would have had an advantage in the arms, quads, and overall symmetry. His legs show cleaner separation and have a more pronounced outer sweep. His biceps and triceps are more symmetrical and genetically superior, and his V-taper is just as impressive. Dorian does have amazing lats, calves, and a more aesthetic midsection. However, his arms are not symmetrical nor as developed as Ronnie's, which could hold him back in this pose, and definitely does. It is important to mention that Ronnie had a noticeable gyno at this show. However, the disparity in arm and leg size is so great that it wouldn't even be enough for him to lose. So regardless of the actual size and scaling, Ronnie would win due to his superior symmetry, objectively larger arms and quads, and comparable midsection and taper. Thankfully in the front lat spread we have similar angles, and here in the pose it is certainly close. This pose between these two will always be up for debate, as Ronnie objectively has better arms, quads, and delts, while Dorian has more bulbous lats, better calves, although you can't see them, and an equally impressive chest. This picture does no justice to Dorian, as he was super ripped, conditioned, and grainy at the 1995 Olympia. You can notice the faint striations in his chest and delts, however the picture makes him look much softer and way less ripped than Ronnie Coleman. While Ronnie does win in more body parts and shows thinner skinned condition, Dorian has a more aesthetic presentation and more wow factor in the lats. It is hard to judge due to the picture not doing Dorian any favors, so I'm going to leave this pose up for debate. Personally, I do think Ronnie looks better due to his higher number of superior body parts, however I think Dorian would objectively win. The side chest shows the superiority of Ronnie in the lower half, as his outer quad sweep looks rounder than Dorian's and he has deeper, more noticeable cuts in the quad. Dorian does have an impressive hamstring, however Ronnie's size and similar level of conditioning is enough for him to win the lower half. Although Dorian is impressive in the upper body, showcasing a grainy arm, great delt, thick chest, and tight midsection, Ronnie is almost better in every aspect apart from having a grainy skin texture. Ronnie has a superior arm, a larger delt, and a massive chest, which would be hard for Dorian to overcome. I do prefer Dorian's posing as he looks more aesthetic, however Ronnie has so much more size and shredded conditioning that it would be hard to not give him the win. There is a possibility that the judges would favor Dorian's posing execution, grainy conditioning, and proportions. However, here I think it is pretty clear that Ronnie wins. Alright, the back poses are the shots, which are probably the most anticipated, as you can see both have amazing backs in the rear double. Like a lot of the images for Dorian's 1995 version, this rear double doesn't do his lower half justice in terms of condition. We'll see in just a moment that he was certainly just as conditioned as Ronnie, so just keep that in the back of your head. Anyways, in terms of backs, I think that Dorian has an objectively better one. This is because his traps are twice as thick, his lats insert lower, giving him more density in the lower back, and he has just as much width. He also has comparable delts from behind, which is very impressive, especially against Ronnie. However, Ronnie does easily win in the arms for similar reasons as in the front double. The lower body is a close call, as Dorian has similar sized hamstrings and better calves, while Ronnie has the best glutes of all time and shows more separation in the hamstrings. I'd probably give Ronnie an advantage in the arms and legs, while Dorian wins in the back. In terms of completeness, I think that Ronnie isn't too far behind him in the back, while being ahead in almost every other area. For that reason, I'd feel comfortable giving him this pose, however I still believe that Dorian has a better overall back. This pose showcasing their Christmas trees shows you just how conditioned both were. Ronnie's incredible glutes and feathered lats are just insane, while Dorian has those deep cuts in the back and paper-thin glutes. Dorian never had deeply cut and separated glutes, rather he had tons of faint striations, which probably made it hard for the cameras to pick up. The rear lat spread shows off their incredible backs once again, as both have great detail, size, and width. Ronnie bends over, which detracts from his width a little bit, however you can see how his traps seemingly double in size from the last pose, and how crisp and symmetrical his entire back looks. His crazy lower body looks just as impressive as in the rear double, and I'd have him winning downstairs once again. In terms of the back, it is definitely a close call. Both are similar in width, detail, and size. However, Ronnie's back looks smooth, while Dorian's looks a little bit grainy. By smooth, I don't necessarily mean soft or not conditioned. However, he lacks the muscle maturity texture of Dorian. I personally am more impressed with that aspect for Dorian, and he also looks a little bit wider in the lats and traps. I'd give him the win in the back once again, however, not by much. This second picture shows them at a more similar angle, and here you can see that Dorian did have similar conditioning in both the hamstrings and glutes, plus superior calves. His back, specifically his lats, look wider too, however Ronnie's traps look more three-dimensional. Still, I think that Dorian's overall grainy look combined with his better back would get him the win. It is definitely close, however Dorian does look objectively better in my opinion. The side tricep is probably one of Ronnie's worst poses, while it is Dorian's best, or one of them at least. Dorian showcases his width through excellent posing, his tricep is genetically better, and his arm looks bigger than Ronnie's due to him pressing it up against his lat. This picture perfectly shows Dorian's grainy granite-like conditioning, as he looks solid like stone and super statuesque. Ronnie almost looks smooth in comparison, not having the same maturity to his musculature. He does have a feathered tricep, great chest and delt, and probably a great side leg as well. However, Dorian really does execute the shot in a much more aesthetic way. I'd definitely be more inclined to give Dorian this pose, as the way he hits the shot allows him to make the most out of his physique and beat guys with objectively better genetics. For instance, the way that he added his calf to the pose when it would otherwise be an afterthought added an additional strong point to the pose. The ab and thigh is not necessarily a bad pose for either of them, especially earlier on for Ronnie, however, none are what you would call aesthetic. Ronnie does have an incredible serratus and decent abs, and probably the best set of quads as well. However, Dorian has a much more impressive V-taper and genetically better abdominal muscles. For some reason, there really aren't many pictures of Ronnie hitting the ab and thigh straight on, so this is the best we have for him. Regardless, I think Dorian would really take this pose, as his V-taper would be more pronounced and his abs are better. Moreover, his quads showcase similar levels of separation to Ronnie's, and his amazing calves would only help make his legs look more complete. Even if these two were side by side on stage, I think most versions of Dorian would beat Ronnie in the ab and thigh, and here is really no exception. The most muscular was never a mandatory pose for Dorian, however, I'm including it in here since it is now. That being said, Dorian actually looks super massive, bringing comparable size in the arms, a ripped chest, insane graininess, and great quads. On his own, he does look pretty good, possibly being one of his best most musculars in this variation. However, Ronnie is just flat out better. He has larger arms, a better chest, more impressive delts, and huge quads. Ronnie's thin skin condition and crazy striations really help increase his freak factor in the shot, and coupling that with his incredible size makes for an unbeatable pose. I think Ronnie would take the most muscular convincingly, however, Dorian is extremely underrated in this pose. Alright guys, that about does it for this video. I had this one ending in a 4-4 tie, however, the front lat spread and the back poses were close and could be debatable. It is unfortunate that many of Dorian's pictures downplayed his conditioning, however, the pictures that showed it proved why he was so dominant. Being able to stand toe-to-toe with one of Ronnie's most aesthetic, ripped, and dominant versions is no easy feat, and I'm sure there are many of you who had Dorian even winning this entire comparison. Let me know if that is the case, or if there are any videos you'd like to see in the future, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.